Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blizzard Watch podcast. We were having kind of a special version because there was so much gaming news and Blizzard news this weekend that I don't know that even an hour could be enough. So we're going to take the pre-show we usually do and just roll it into the show. So you get an hour and a half of Blizzard Watch podcast with a lot of possible extraneous stuff because there are a lot of games we want to talk about besides the big Blizzard announcement. But before we go on into that kind of thing, first I'm going to apologize for my throat. I know it sounds terrible. I don't know what the deal is. Secondly, I want to introduce Liz and Joe, the other two magnificent co-hosts of this show, who are going to probably have to do more talking because I don't know what's going on. Hi, guys. How y'all doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Sorry, I had to take a second to get some liquid there. I was hoping you'd talk more.
I realized that after.
But anyway, so yeah, let's just move right on into this. I'm going to just be completely transparent. We are trying a couple of new things this week in terms of how we do the podcast. One of which is our new patrons. Joe and Liz, do you guys want to do that before we do everything else? Or do you want to do it after? Or how do you want to do the new supporters thing?
It's a post ad. I do it as part of the recording.
Now you guys know that's happening. Yeah. Secondly, let's straight up go into talking about Blizzard games. The first one is, of course, we got the release dates for two games. We got the release date for The War Within, which is coming in August 26th, or as I called it, wow, okay, that's quick. I was quite surprised. I had a lot of real life stuff going on, so I hadn't been able to keep up with news as much as I wanted to, and then that came out, and I was like, yikes! Oh God! Oh, that's not very far away. That's 2 months away. That's what it's more like. 3 months, but you know.
I mean, I was surprised it was this early. I mean, I did expect it to be later, and as far as predictions on the site, I believe this is when we predicted the pre-patch would be coming. So,
yeah, I believe that is accurate, yeah.
Yeah.
But we tend to be conservative just because we've been around a while on that kind of front. We've seen them do all sorts of things. It's very hard to predict when the game's coming out. But I figured you two and me could all talk about this first bit of news for The War Within that we had a post on about tanking and healing classes going to see DPS trinket change. I don't like this change as a tank, but I am curious as to what you guys as healers think about it. For that matter, do you really think you understand it? Because I don't know that I do.
I honestly do not totally understand it. I think Blizzard has poorly explained it. Here's what Blizzard has said. They've said DPS trinkets and items with additional effects will be reduced by 33% for tank and healer specializations. And they've said they're doing this because tanks and healers are picking these things and putting out a lot of damage when Blizzard wants them to pick defensive things.
Yeah.
So
this is about Mythic dungeons, and mostly Mythic Plus and keys. It sounds goofy, but healers and tanks with proper setups and DPS trinkets, if they get the best ones, in some cases, I'm looking at Death Knights and I'm looking at, I want to say it was Shaman, we're putting out more DPS than some of the DPS pure DPS classes in those instances. It creates a weird disparity. But I think it's an interesting decision to say that because they're not clarifying what qualifies as a DPS trinket. What effects are you talking about? Is it just ones that deal damage? Are those the only ones that you're considering? Or is it going to be something like the Black Dragon scale, which gives crit? Is it going to be one of those that gets nerfed into the ground or, for healers does less effect? I'm not mad about it, but I'm sort of just kind of curious. And also if it's going to change their design space, because this is something I've been complaining about since probably Battle for Azeroth. When's the last time we had like a really purely solidly healer like weapon? And then you has not existed in forever. Additional effects on gear? Nope, those are all DPS.
There was a healing weapon in Shadowlands, and I think it was so terrible no one wants to think about it. I mean,
Correct.
It was
none of us took it.
It gave it had a unique effect for each healer. Different healing classes got a different effect that buffed one of their skills, and it felt like Blizzard went out of their way to pick skills that these classes did not use in their rotation and buff them with this weapon. And it's like, And because it had this special ability, it was understated for other things. So it had fewer stats, plus these extra buffs to skills we did not use. It was like, wow, someone went out of their way to make this bad.
And they've done that this season as well, or this expansion. The weapons, unless you were a Evoker, because Evoker's got a healing weapon-ish. So but nobody else did, and everything else was DPS focused. A lot of the really good trinkets in the game are technically DPS trinkets for the spellcasting classes, which happen to be, a lot of healers and a good number of tanks at this point as well. Are they going to change their design space and design better trinkets for tanks and healers? Or are they going to just, again, purely focus on DPS, give us nothing in recompense, and then just nerf this into the ground? Now, that's not to say that we didn't get a bunch of good trinkets, because like the Black Dragon Scale was really good if you were a crit healer. Looking at the Blossom of Amadrasil, really good if you are a healer, but is a healing trinket after all. But like, there's a lot of nebulousness around this, and I want to see what it actually translates into and what we get as a result of it. So that's
I definitely think it's worth pointing out that the real issue for me, at least as someone who plays a tank frequently, is this inability to know what will be affected.
Mm-hmm.
Because the damage I'm okay with a damage nerf. I actually think it is completely unneeded for some tanks. Like,
looking at you, Demon Hunters.
Yeah, that's needed for them maybe, but it's not needed for like classes that don't do a lot of AoE damage. Do not need a DPS nerf on trinkets. But classes that do a lot of AoE damage, yeah, they can put out some ridiculous amounts of damage because the damage is ticking off of everything. But it's not. I've always feel like there needs to be a discussion on when AoE damage is useful versus when it isn't. And there's a whole idea of like where people use meters to tell they're doing more DPS than the DPS is. Yes, but the DPS is doing way more single target, which is what we want them to be doing on this particular boss fight. All of that damage that the tank is doing is really just threat, because there's still to this day, threat is affected by damage dealt. That is it's there. It is still in the game. It has always been in the game. And when a tank is doing a ton of AoE damage, he is not speeding up the encounter. He's just holding threat. Now, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes tons of AoE damage means that like a blood decay can literally clear trash super fast, which is really useful in a Mythic Plus, right? You want if the tank is putting out so much damage that all the ads are getting killed really fast, then he is outperforming the DPS, and that's a concern. But when it's just threat, then it's less of a concern. And I think that this change means that hopefully they're going to design trinkets that are better for tanks who are trying to have a flexible build. Because right now, tank trinkets don't provide flexible builds. Tank trinkets provide either you can do a little damage and you get a bubble that keeps you from getting hurt, or like I keep thinking about the first tier of raiding in Dragonflight. There's that one trinket that when you use it gives you a damage shield, and when the damage shield runs out, it explodes around and hits everything around you. And it was intended for DPS, I guess, but it's like it was a great DPS trinket, but it's also an astonishing tanking trinket. Like, I loved that thing. And I'm like, why wouldn't I want that as a tank? A damage shield that also hits everything around me and makes them stick to me? Yes, I want to be sticky. Make me sticky. This is a trinket I'm going to love. There's nothing in the design of this trinket to tell you what its intended role is. Like, how do you know? Because I'm going to say this. DPS also needs survival cooldowns. And the trinket is a survival cooldown. A lot of DPS rolled on and got that trinket when I was raiding. Yeah, I got it. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, you're raising another point, too, which is sometimes loot tables are oddly partitioned. Like, there are trinkets that are very clearly something that would be good for a tank or a healer, but they only show up on DPS loot tables. We've had that multiple times over the years. I think we've had it a couple times this expansion where like certain items that are definitely good for a specific, like I can only really talk about healing classes. But things that were good for specific healing classes didn't show up on the healing thing, at least not until they were like hot fixed or patched later when, people complained about it. Because they were DPS stuff. Like
you pointed out about crit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I really feel like we need to talk about in terms of secondary effects. Some stuff is really great for specific healing or tanking builds. Like some healers want mastery.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a trinket that procs mastery, that could be a DPS trinket. But it's absolutely brilliant for the healer over there who's stacking mastery. Same with tanking. There are some tanking classes where you're going to want that big bubble, or you're going to want this thing adds haste. That's great for me, a prot paladin, because X. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that they really need to. They make these announcements and they don't tell you what they're doing. It's like this announcement causes more confusion than it does actually inform me, and that's a problem.
Yeah,
especially
and like
this
I said,
close to the release.
And like I said, it will mainly wind up like this type of stuff will mainly wind up affecting Mythic Plus, because what we saw earlier in the expansion, and then I'm assuming in season 4, they haven't really dug too deep in the current season as far as Mythic keys goes. I just haven't had the time or wherewithal to really push on them right now. But previously, you would see like tanks and healers who were regularly eclipsing DPS on meters for whether it was trash or boss fights. It didn't matter. There were groups that I was in where I was doing plus 20, plus 22 keys where I would die, because that's what happens when you're in that high level of a thing, not have my self-resurrection, and then watch other members of the group die, and then watch the tank completely finish the boss fight by themselves, because tanks are nigh unkillable, and then also putting out a stupid amount of DPS where you can still time the key as long as the tank doesn't die. So I get it. I understand the concern, but we just don't have enough information yet.
Yeah,
and
that's, I think, the biggest issue.
It really is.
This announcement does not tell me what I should be doing. It just tells me, panic. Hey, everything's going to change. Panic. But what am I supposed to do? I have no idea, man. Please, Blizzard, actually tell me what you're doing. So I do think that's a problem.
And maybe we will get something in a future patch notes or a dev diary or something. But they've got 2 months
till this comes out. So I feel like they're going to tell us something sooner. Liz, I heard you make a noise there. Didn't mean to speak.
No, carry on. I agree with everything. I agree with everything both of you were saying.
Yeah, I do think that it's definitely a situation where I'm not saying that this isn't a warranted change. I am saying that it would be nice to know exactly what they're changing. But now I'm actually going to segue, and that bolt of lightning, if you heard it, that's not an angry deity, I hope. But Joe, I think you put this up. You had mentioned that we should do it. So I want to talk about the new Mythic Plus testing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this week, as of the time of this recording, they're doing, I think it's June 13th, they're going to be starting to do Mythic and Mythic Plus difficulty testing for the beta. And we're going to be getting our first look at the dungeons for that particular season. So it's going to be the Stone Vault, the Dawnbreaker, Arakara, City of Echoes, City of Threads, Grimbatal, the Necrotic Wake, Mist of Tyrannus Scythe, and Siege of Borealis. Quite a mix of places. So we now know what is going to be the first season of Mythic Plus, Mythic Plus rotation. But they're also going to be testing out their new affixes, which I think this is probably one of the most interesting things. And I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, because here's what they've given us so far. So during testing, the affixes will rotate daily on the realms to basically make sure everybody gets a chance to experience them. The new ones are Reckless, where non-boss enemies without mana ignore 20% armor with their attacks, but their armor is reduced by 30% and they take 10% increased arcane damage. There's Thorned, non-boss enemies without mana inflict physical damage to their attackers when attacked, but take 10% increased holy and shadow damage. Attuned, non-boss enemies with mana inflict 20% increased magic damage, but take 10% increased nature damage and 30% increased damage from bleed effects. And then focused. Non-boss enemies with mana have a 30% increased haste, but take 10% increased frost and fire damage. The interesting things here isn't necessarily what these do for the bosses or non-boss entities, although that is very interesting and will affect runs, especially with the increase or decrease of armor and how that will affect physical damage dealing classes. The interesting thing is that each of these reads like a Diablo-esque sort of
They literally,
affix.
I was going to say that they're literally things you see when you run the, oh bloody heck, the things you run that aren't dungeon. They're, oh bloody heck, I can't think of what the word is. Nightmare dungeons?
Nightmare dungeons?
Nightmare dungeons, thank you.
Yeah, which not necessarily a bad thing, but the interesting thing is in WoW, that's going to be something where I don't know that they've realized or maybe given thought, maybe they have, I don't know, that this is going to affect group composition based off of what the affixes are, because as groups are going to be pushing keys, they're going to be looking for more arcane damage on reckless weeks, they're going to be looking for more holy and shadow damage on thorned weeks, and folks are going to have a hard time picking up groups with that, and it is going to affect group composition, in my opinion. And now I'm going to stop and let you guys talk. Don't both
I have a dry throat.
as they say, don't both go at once.
See, I don't do a lot of Mythic Plus, so I don't have any big opinions on this one. I mean, I feel like the big problem with Mythic Plus is always how exclusive it can be, because at the beginning of the season, you tend to get people get a predisposition to what the right group is and what the best classes are. And then no one gets in. Like, if you aren't on that list, you don't get in. You can't get in pugs, and it's just a pain in the neck. So, this doesn't feel like it's going to change that. And I don't know if Blizzard can change that, because it's just the community has built this on its own kind of preconceptions about classes and who's good and who's bad and who's okay and who's unacceptable. So, I think it's interesting. They're continuing to make changes. They're trying to iterate and improve. I don't know if this is going to be any better or any worse.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to help with that. And people who have not experienced it, it doesn't feel good. There was a point in season 2 where shaman just were not getting picked for, if you were a Resto Shaman, you just didn't do Mythic Plus key pugs. You couldn't get into groups. That definitely changed in season 3 and season 4. But for that season 2, nope, wasn't a thing that happened. So, I mean, it's interesting. And I'm curious if they're going to take that into consideration. Everything else about these, I think, is cool. And I think it's really neat that they're playing around with the affixes and working on adding new ones in. And they are taking other ones out, like Incorporeal, for example, is out. And Incorporeal was one that, very few people could interact with class-wise, which made it not very fun. And if you were like a healer, if you missed your stuff, you were just kind of boned. So I'm not sad to see that go personally. That's fine. But it was also one that, certain classes like shaman could take a totem and be completely, fine with it and just drop a totem whenever they saw the incorporeal spirits come up and just ignore that mechanic entirely. So I appreciate what they're doing at the very least. I just think it's going to be one that I really do hope that people give feedback on, because bleed effects, that means basically what rogues and feral druids, I'm sorry, is it feral? Yeah, it's feral.
Death Knights Death Knights have some bleed effects. I mean,
do they?
Yeah, like heart render and so forth.
Okay.
Although maybe they don't anymore. I haven't played my Death Knight this expansion. But I mean, for that matter, warriors have rend, and we'd have you can put a bleed on your not your shockwave, thunderclap, so that literally you're doing bleeds constantly. There's lots of abilities for warriors that can do a bleed. I don't think that they're up there with druids, but they definitely have the ability to do it. My concern on this is actually something a little different. I feel like I think your concern about this affecting group composition is completely valid. But I also think the best way to, I mean, how many affixes can you have? You just have one, right?
No, affixes stack as you get higher in key levels.
So I'm thinking,
you'll have fortified and one of these and something else.
I'm wondering if you could have these are all kind of built around the idea of they all do more, but they also take more, right? Like there's the ignore 20% of armor, but their armor is reduced by 30% and they take 10% increased arcane damage. that's obviously going to be rewarding anybody who does physical damage or mage. Or anybody with, like, I mean, druids are going to hit their, what's it called? Wrath? Is it Wrath that does arcane damage, or is it something else?
Moonfire? Are we talking about Moonfire?
Yeah, I have not
Moonfire.
I've not played a druid in a long time. But I find myself wondering how these are going to combine. Like, these are all for non-boss enemies.
Yeah, but I don't know that these are ones that are going to stack in comparison to the other ones. I think these are ones that are going to be in the rotation for your weekly affixes. So I think these are going to be like one of the major ones and not one of the, like, the minor ones that get kind of baked in.
But all of these, if you look at them, they're all, again, non-boss enemies. So all of these are going to skew the presence of AoE DPS because you're going to want to get through them faster. You don't want the tank having 20% of his armor ignored, and you don't want the tank taking damage every time he hits these things. Like, so that's I'm looking at this thinking to myself, how is this going to make the already, like, we just discussed how they've essentially changing the way trinkets work for DPS and healers, I mean for tanks and healers, because they're doing too much DPS. But this is going to create an urge to do even more DPS. And that's, I don't have, like, I'm not criticizing this, I just want to know how it plays out. So when you're saying feedback, I'm hoping people will look at that.
Yeah,
because I'm curious, what does it mean when you focus so totally on, like, this is basically just all the things except the bosses get this. So how does that work?
I'm looking forward to testing it out now that I have beta access. I'm going to try to spend some time with it and actually get in there and see how it feels so that I can report back. Because I'm really curious how it's going to work out. Yeah,
I definitely think it is something that's really. Liz crossed out my griping about the new human racial, so we won't talk about that. But we will go to QOL changes, quality of life changes in the War Within. I like them. The 3 that we had the post on, I think they're all pretty good. That's how I feel. I don't know how you guys feel.
Are you gonna tell us what those are, Matt?
Yes, I am. But unfortunately, lightning just hit outside, so I'm a little like So give me a second here. Sorry, guys. Where is it? Where did I put this? Oh my god, I can't find it. I'm so confused by my own organization system, and it's just crazy. Okay, the first one that I actually like, since we're going to go on this one, and I'm going to go in order of the ones in the post, but the Warband Mentors thing, where your lower level alts get 5% experience bonus for every max level character that you have. So if you are, like, your first character you level to level 80, you don't get any bonus because you don't have any characters at 80 yet. Second character you level to 80, now they're getting 5%. Your third character now gets 10%, and so on. I assume there's probably some point where this stops. But, like, for instance, the example here is to use that if you level 5 characters to max, every other character you play will level 25% faster. And I really like this because I feel like it is. Go ahead, Liz. Sorry.
It's a maximum of 25%. So.
Okay, yeah. So I like this because it is basically it's doing something that I feel like we were doing previously with stuff like heirlooms and so forth, where it's saying, "Oh, you've leveled through this already. You don't need to take the exact same amount of time that you did before. It can go faster now. Oh, now you've leveled through it twice. It can go a little faster than that. Oh, now you're on your 4th character. It can go much faster." And I think that's good because it is basically recognizing that the real block for some people isn't that they don't want to have alts. It isn't that they don't like playing the game. It is that they cannot devote the same amount of time every time. Like, because now you're like, I'm still trying to play the character I got to 80, but now I'm also trying to level this other character. So now I don't have as much time to play the character as I did. And I just like it. I think it's really cool. You guys
agree. I think it's a really neat catch-up mechanic, and I think it's a cool incentive, especially as somebody who at the end of the current expansion, I went on sort of an alt leveling spree out of nowhere. Like, I was literally spending all my free time just leveling my alts to max level up until Remist's released, and then I started leveling an alt there. So, like, this is cool, and I think this is a really neat way of incentivizing alts in an expansion that's already shaping up to be much more alt-friendly than I think many people were expecting, especially with the whole concept of warbands together with the sharing of the gear and what they're already doing. They're definitely making the game more accessible for people like me who like having an army of alts, supporting my main or being supported by my main.
Yeah. Liz?
No, it's a great change. I mean, it feels like there's been a gap since Blizzard downgraded heirlooms and removed the experience bonus from them. You know, you used to be able to, you get max level. Now's when you have the time and resources to go and buy all of these heirlooms or, grind out the resources to buy them from events or from the Dark Moon Fair. And, Blizzard stepped back on that. Now they're sort of adding that experience boost again. And instead of giving it to the player with a ton of gold to buy these things, they're giving it to players who have put in some time in the game. So it feels like a fair reward for the amount of time you're putting in. And for people who don't level alts in the first place, this does not affect them. It doesn't matter. And for people who love leveling alts, this will make the next one and the next one and the next one a little speedier. It's all good.
So next up, this one is, it's one that I've seen people actually tell me isn't worthwhile, isn't good. I think it will be very good. It's a spellbook search and filter. And the thing I like about that, there's been new layout changes to spellbooks and so forth, but I feel like we all at some point have been trying to find that ability, and you're like trying to like, where is it? Which page is it on? Which is it considered a core ability, or is it a ability from a specific specialization? Where is this effing thing? And you find it, but it takes you a little while.
Or, I know it's that icon that's yellow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're a paladin, you have 30 yellow icons, so yeah.
They're all yellow. There's like one that isn't yellow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I just feel like they're going to have like it's similar to bag search. If you've used bag search in the game, there's a little bar. You just type in there, and then things that go along with it will light up. That's what this will be. I do think this won't help necessarily with which yellow icon is it, because I don't think you can type in yellow and get a response. But
it would still give me 30 abilities. So
yeah, but at least now you only have to look at 30 of them as opposed to like 60 or 80 or 120. But I like having this because, like I said, sometimes I have a real hard time remembering the exact name of an ability. Like I'll eventually remember it's Thunderclap, but I'll be calling it Thunderstomp for like 10 minutes. And my brain will just be going Thunderstomp. Yes, that's close enough. No, it isn't. But if I just put Thunder in, Thunderclap will light up, and I'll be like, there it is. And I think that's a good thing. I think having this thing won't break or even specifically change anyone's gameplay experience a lot, but it will solve an annoyance and streamline an experience. And by itself, maybe that's not that big a deal, but I feel like if you have a lot of things like this added in that provide utility and make the experience easier, as you add more of them, you create an overall friendlier experience. I don't think Joe's gotten to talk yet, so.
I mean, anything that they do to make finding stuff easier is good, especially since it's already going into a nice, shiny new interface, which took me by surprise when I first opened it up and started poking around. I mean, it's already much more intuitive and it's easier to navigate and filter things through. But I do like that missing from an action bar, which is really, really good.
Yes.
How many times have I taken something and I don't know where it is on my bar? And I was super excited when they added the thing where it's like you mouse over it and then it glows on your bar. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. And now this one's like, this isn't on your bar. And it's a really good reminder because I've taken talents and completely effing forgot to put them on my bar right before an important boss fight, only to be digging in my spell book in the middle of a boss fight trying to find it. I'm looking at you, Capacitor Totem, and how many times I've had to take you recently. I like this. I think this is a really good quality of life. It seems really simple, but for folks like me or other people who I get distracted, I have squirrel brain sometimes. Shiny object go burr by me, and I have to pay attention to that shiny object and completely forget what I'm doing for like 10 seconds. And then ultimately forget to do something I was meaning to do. This is perfect. This means that I'm not going to forget. I love it.
All right, and the final one that's in this article that I do want to talk about is the skywriting talents and toggles anywhere, which is basically pointed out in the article that there was a bit of trouble for people trying to do their time rider, dragon riding talents while in the game. Because, we didn't have dragon riding in Pandaria originally, but Remix does have it because it is something that we were having right now. And there were solutions to the problem, but they're going to basically take it and just make it, default. We have a default thing that just does it. Go ahead, Liz.
That they really had to do this because right now the only way to access your dragon riding talents is through a little icon that's specific to the Dragon Isles that tells you your renown with different Dragon Isles factions, and it just also has a tab for dragon riding. And now dragon riding has been rebanded to sky riding, and you need a way to get to those talents because you're still going to have the same talents, and you need a way to be able to access them. So this is kind of a no-brainer. But also, it's good they put in the thought and they're putting this somewhere where you can easily reach it.
Yeah, there's a new spell called Switch Flight Style, which you can just hit rather than the current situation, which is just kind of like, I don't know what to do. You can just hit that, and now you're using Skyriding or you're using old school flight, which I think is also a good thing because I know people who do not want to do Skyriding. They absolutely do not want to do it ever. I'm kind of in that camp. I'm not. I guess I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not very good at dragon riding. Yeah, I run into a lot of trees, and I'm not good at it either. But I don't mind doing it because I'm not good at it in a way where I end up slamming into the ground a lot. But luckily, the mount lands and you don't die. But yeah, I do a lot of things where I'm like up as high as I can go, and now I will just dive. Oh, I did not understand how close the ground. Oops.
So. I will say one thing that's kind of annoying there. It's okay, you can switch between them easily, but in Khazalgar on the new continent, you will have to unlock the ability to use standard flying. You will not be able to use it straight away. You can use sky riding almost immediately from the time you get there, but standard riding is not going to be accessible until a late game achievement.
Yeah, I understand them doing that because they want the more interacting with the world version of flying before you can get the one where you can just go, okay, I gotta go to the potty, so I'm just gonna float here for a while and come back. I miss that, quite frankly. There are times where I really have to. One of the things I'm discovering with ADHD is that your body doesn't tell you when you need to take a bio until you really need to take it.
100%. Like it is usually almost on the verge of, if not too late by the time your brain says, hey, by the way.
Or do you ever have the thing where you just adjust slightly and that's when your body goes, oh, we have to go.
Yep.
I'm having that one a lot. So yeah, I do miss the ability to just pop up on Mim's head and float above everything. It's like, I'll be back in a second. So yeah, I do see problems, but I get why they're doing it. And it's better than the old system where they would just kill flying for an entire expansion. And then, okay, you can have it back now at the end. It's like, I don't need it now. I'm just going to teleport places now. I'm not going out into the world. But yeah, so I do think that this change is a good one. Both for the thing Liz said about how we needed to have it because you couldn't interact with the talents, and also just because I think it makes this simpler.
Well, speaking of simple, and I think this is maybe a side that I think maybe conversation we can have that Liz started and LaRock in chat has pointed out, and skywriting still is not a thing that everybody is on board with. Maybe they physically can't deal with it. We know from an accessibility standpoint that skywriting was virtually impossible for a large number of folks, which this kind of feels bad in light of that when they sort of have acknowledged that throughout Dragonflight, which is part of the whole reason we got our toggle and they were making it so that you could have regular flight. That was one of the whole reasons they were breaching that or bringing that in, as opposed to like doubling down and going hard on the skywriting. I'm curious if they're going to walk that back because I think that could potentially be a barrier for flight for certain people, especially if you have people that have motion sickness or people that their reaction times aren't fantastic, which, there are people who play this game that our reaction time isn't quite what it used to be. And some of us find skywriting difficult as a result of that. Or some of us are visually impaired and find skywriting difficult as a result of that. Some of us are older and can't do skywriting because of various whatever. And then this combined with now I think druids are complaining about it as well, because skywriting in flight form doesn't really work, but yet they're kind of stuck to it if they use their flight form. So
okay, yeah, that's actually something I really do hope they change.
yeah.
I don't think that your flight form or whatever your travel form should be locked into skywriting.
I think at this point we reached the level where flying a game, and I'll say this again, the game is designed in our new content with flight in mind. They've been doing this for years. It's not like when flight first was introduced to the game, and for lack of a better term, it felt like it was kind of buckled on or bolted on to the game. And so doing things like flying in Duskwood was just an absolute nightmare because the trees were just weird and you didn't know when you were going to hit an invisible wall that was crammed at the top of the tree, because that is a thing that happened. The games now are designed with verticality in mind. They're designed with this idea that you're going to have access to flight in some capacity. Why gate regular flight from people at the beginning of an expansion? I can understand thematically maybe where it made sense in Dragonflight. It was the brand new hotness and they wanted to do it. And don't get me wrong, I personally really enjoy it, but I do care a hell of a lot about accessibility. And I think that gating it and not having it available at the same time that skywriting becomes available in the next expansion is going to hurt a lot of players more than maybe are going to be able to be vocal about it than it is going to help. So I'm hoping they revisit this whole theme.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. I do, however, think that is one of those things we'll have to wait and see on. I will, however, say that this does kind of make me want to bring up my next thing, which was that we still don't know when Drakthir will be able to do anything but evoke. And I know that they're saying as early as possible in the War Within, but they don't know when. Like, it won't be at launch, but they want it to be early on in the cycle. And I get that sometimes is what happens. I'm not saying that they are bad for this. Liz put that quote in from Ian Hezekostas, basically the game director. I am not saying that if they don't tell me right now, I won't play the thing. I am, however, interested in what's the problem. And I'm curious about it because one of the things they've said is they want to make it so that Drakthir can do things in their visage form. And that's interesting because Worgen don't get that. Like, a Worgen doesn't stay human and fight. If they start fighting, boom, they're a Worgen. But we know dragons can do stuff in their non-dragon forms. I mean, they can...
Like,
Chromie does it all the time.
But if you're playing as a Drakthir, as an evoker, right now, whenever you use a dragon ability, you turn into a dragon. Poof, you're a dragon. You're breathing fire, so you have to be a dragon. Yeah, but yeah, like, we have lots of examples of dragons fighting while in their visage forms, or doing things while in their visage forms. So it does make sense thematically to do this.
Yeah, and I do wonder, like, if that's going to be the case, and they have talked about doing it, how it's going to work, how the animations are going to work. I am just straight up looking forward to seeing what they do with it. I don't like the Evoker class. I tried it. I actually felt like it was just too good the first time I played it. Like,
you know what? I'll get on that bandwagon.
Well, but here's the thing: is that when I say it, I don't mean that it's too good and that it eclipses other classes or anything like that.
I am.
I want a certain amount of pushback from a class when I engage in it. I mean, if I wanted it to be like super easy, anyone can do this stuff, I'd play a paladin.
Well, I mean, I will say that I don't think
That was just to get Liz. Go ahead, John.
I don't think Evoker is a particularly easy class because charge skills are a thing, but if you can master that particular skill, it is a incredibly powerful class, especially for healing. I've seen people who are, and this is no offense to them, absolutely god-awful healers in every other class that just blow like other like actually, good healers out of the water as an Evoker.
You know, one of the things I think that's responsible for that from my time playing the Evoker, it doesn't play like a healing class.
It doesn't, which is fine. It plays a lot like Alex Straza in Heroes of the Storm, which is what I called that. I called that out a while ago, and it's very much that, which was fantastic in that setting with the charges and everything else. But yeah, they're too good, in my opinion.
For me, it was more that you don't have to play it like, to a certain degree. Playing a tank or a DPS or a healer has a certain amount of adjustment to a certain play style, and it does depend very much on the class. Like a warrior tank is very different from a paladin tank, even though they use a shield and a weapon. They play differently. Death Knight, Monk, Druid, Demon Hunter. I've tanked on all of them. Not an end game, but I've tanked on all of them. And there's a difference in each style, but there's still a mentality of tanking to them. And same for healers. I've only healed on a shaman and a paladin and a tiny bit on a druid. I never healed on my monk. But they also had kind of a different feel to how they did it, but they still felt like healers. And for me, evokers felt like a DPS all the time. That's what I mean.
Such an unusual class.
Yeah. When I say that it's too easy, what I mean is there's no inherent pushback that I feel doing it. I don't feel like I have to change my approach. I just go at it like I'm DPSing. And that's weird for a healer. It doesn't mean it's bad. I'm not saying destroy them with a nerf hammer, maybe adjust them a little bit, but once you get that targeting, the skills that are like charged up, once you get used to that, you have basically mastered the evoker. Like that is it's basically learn to do this and then learn to pay attention to your own health, which is the other big problem with evokers. Like they have a lot of self-healing, but you have to do it. Like there's almost nothing automatic about that. Like you have to.
I think that's also a universal healer problem. We spend so much time looking at everyone else's health bars. It's sometimes you just kind of block out your own, and then you're dead, and you're like, what?
I
was standing in fire. That thing I yell at everyone else about doing. Oops.
To be fair, direct your fly into the fire this time.
Yeah.
They set the fire.
The flaw here was that I died. Otherwise, everything was going swimmingly until that died. Oops. But so, yeah, I am looking forward to them as other classes. I'm looking forward to seeing how they make that work, how much of that can be done in Visage form. Like, it would be really cool if, like, you DPS'd in your Drakthir form but tanked in your Visage form. I don't know. There's lots of different ways to this, but I'm really looking forward to seeing. However, we got to start talking about Diablo 4. Because first off, we learned that Vessel of Hatred is coming out in October, which, speaking of, really that soon? I'm like, we had heard nothing about this, and now you're saying October 8th? Okay.
I mean,
go ahead, Liz.
I will say Blizzard had said this was coming out this year, late this year, I think is what they said. And also, the Diablo team has been playing things like very close to the chest, to where they do not announce things until like the day before they're out, and then they announce them confusingly and launch them in a way different than they announced, and everyone is at a loss. So I'm not surprised to see a release date that is pretty close. They seem to generally not push information out early, and they have not done a lot of play testing in the past. There is no word as to whether there is going to be a beta or other play testing for Vessel of Hatred.
At least a small PTR, guys, please.
I know. Diablo 4 is so interesting to me in that they do very little testing. Their announcements are usually succinct. They don't necessarily give you all of the information you wish you had. And practically every bit of new content they've rolled out has been rough and buggy and rescheduled or pushed back or changed. And I think a lot of that is a result to not getting feedback in advance and not doing testing. This season 4, which is live now, is the first time they did a PTR for the season. And it feels like this is something they need to do. So I do hope Vessel of Hatred has, a little bit of beta testing in there just to help everyone else get a smooth launch experience, which is what we want. We want to play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, however, that looking over the stuff that we've got to talk about, the first thing we should probably mention is the new class, which is the Spiritborn, which, I feel like that's basically just Shaman with a different name.
It also feels to me a little like Monk. It's kind of a mystical damage dealer.
It's like if Monk and Amazon had a baby.
It's or it's like if Monk, Amazon, and Druid had a baby. I'm not opposed to it. I don't say it's bad. I'm just interested to see how this plays out, especially since they've also put a class in Diablo Immortal that kind of feels like this too. But
the Tempest, that was actually my first thought. I was like, oh, this sounds like the Tempest.
It is similar. They're not
I mean-
identical, but they are similar.
We do not have a lot of information on this class.
Nope.
All we have is a name, and Blizzard said, ranked among the apex predators of the jungle, the Spiritborn is an entirely new class to the Diablo series. They are battle-hardened with mystical synergies that could only be awakened from deep within the jungles of Nahantu. Become one of the Spiritborn and embrace the ethereal spirits entwined with this ancient civilization.
Which, I mean,
That's
Joe
it.
and I have been talking, whenever we did a lore watch on Diablo and Diablo 4,
Mhm.
we've been talking about how they're going to deal with the idea that, the jungles in that area aren't naturally connected to Sanctuary. And I do think that this feels like it might be playing into that.
Well, I think it is, because in Nahantu is the jungle south of Kyrgyzstan, which, if I remember correctly, are often referred to as like it's outside or at like the outside edges of Sanctuary. So like we're getting back into that ethereal space again.
Which I do think is,
So is it-
Go ahead, Liz.
Is it just that every jungle in Diablo is kind of
Well, no, because the jungles,
because we had
The
the
swamp.
comment in Hawazar.
but that was Hawazar's
Hawazar-
a swamp.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Hawazar and Nahantu are kind of connected. They
Yeah.
are they're physically in close proximity to each other. You could be forgiven for arguing that they are essentially Nahantu is the place where all the water in Hawazar comes from.
Yeah, it feeds the Argentec River, I think is what it is.
Yeah. The rains and so forth in Nahantu provide Hawazar with its swampiness. It's much the way you got a river delta in the real world. You go upstream and you'll find the jungle. If you look at the Nile comes down from the mountains and the jungles and goes north and then hits the delta. So I do think that they're interrelated. And Nahantu, the problem is Nahantu is a new name for a place that we had before that got changed because Taraja is the name of actual people.
Yes.
Like there's real life Taraja people. It would be like naming your weird haunted jungle, like Englishman or something. It'd be like, why is it named Englishman? Because it's actually we have no idea. We didn't mean that. Oops, sorry, we didn't know English people existed. Our bad. So that's kind of what happened with Taraja. So yeah.
Yeah, because they're a tribe of people in like I want to say it's Indonesia.
I don't remember where they actually are. I remember at the time reading the article, and it was like they were like someone from them basically contacted Blizzard, was like, "Excuse me, did you mean to do this?" And they were like, "Oh God, we didn't know you were real. Sorry."
Yeah, I don't know. The similarities between their culture and what they put in game are a little too close. I don't know if it was an accident. I'm just saying.
It doesn't. Yeah, it just feels like. But then again, keep in mind that Diablo has always been cobbled together by disparate people. Diablo 2 was put together by Blizzard North like before 2000.
Oh, I know.
It's quite possible that nobody at Blizzard now knew that. You know what I'm saying? But regardless, I'm actually really cool. I think it's really cool to get to see Nahantu. It's really cool to get to actually see the places that were a big part of the real big ending of Diablo 2. To see those practically at this point, it's like we're talking like 75 years down the road.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, so it's Diablo 2 was like 20 years before Diablo 3, which is 50 years before this. So yeah, we're 75 years. So I'm really looking forward to that. I do feel like also we should mention there's mercenaries again, right?
Yeah.
Because that's new to Diablo 4. You haven't had that yet. How are they going to work more like Diablo 2, right?
We know, much like this new class, we know nearly nothing about mercenaries in Diablo 4, except they will be there. They're going to be there.
Yeah, that's interesting because if it's like Diablo 3, I kind of preferred I don't know what you call them, henchmen, assistants, friends,
hirelings.
But like the scoundrel, Templar, and Enchantress, they were
Everyone
cool.
had
they had like story and stuff.
And a personality. They had unique personalities. Where in Diablo 2, it was just, I'm going to hire a rogue because she has ice arrows. And that's it. She's going to stand there and shoot ice arrows.
Yeah, please.
That's all. That's the whole thing.
I need you to shoot everything with ice arrows. I don't have this myself, and I really need you to provide it. So yeah, I do hope it's more along the lines of the Diablo 3 model. I don't know how much actual story they can put in for these characters, but I do that they have more. However, I feel like I'm not talking about the really important thing. Puppies and possibly kitties. I don't know if we have kitties yet. I mean,
there are kitties.
Okay. They're adding pets, guys. They're adding pets to Diablo 4. I don't know why they weren't there to start. I don't know what miscommunication happened where they did not give us pets. I really miss my giant evil chest that bites things. I guess we're starting with like real animals, like dogs and cats and so forth.
Yes.
And that's cool. The dog in question is really just adorable. He looks like dog meat from
He
Fallout,
does, kind of.
He does.
And the nice thing is these pets are going to follow you around and they're going to pick up loot. And if you are a necromancer, they count as a minion for all of those things that buff you if you have more minions. I'm pretty sure that's a bug.
I like the fact that
pretty sure it's a bug. Yeah, that's great.
Although I'm curious, because one of the things that from the whole Diablo and every game that spun off from it, I know we've talked about this before, but briefly for those that don't know, the folks that made Diablo 2, Blizzard North, when they left Blizzard North, they split into two distinct companies. One went on to go make Hellgate London. The other went to go make Torchlight. And one of the things that I really loved about Torchlight and Torchlight 2 was the pet system, because your pet was able to pick up loot, but was also an extension of you. And would go, you could dismiss it at points to go sell loot for you. So you could send it back to town, and it would take a amount of time to come back to you, and you just wouldn't have it during that time. It'd essentially be placing it on a cooldown. But when it came back, it'd have all the gold or gems or whatever. I can't remember what the currency was. I think it was just gold.
Yeah, I think it was gold.
But you'd get that back, like your pet would come back, and it would also be extra storage space for you too, almost like a cube. Where you could like shove health potions into it. I'm really surprised that one, we didn't see that in Diablo 3. And I think I commented on that when Diablo 3 released that I was surprised that they didn't do that. And two, I'm doubly surprised with the addition of pets here that we didn't see them like crib that system, because that game company no longer exists. And so, that legacy should live on. And honestly, it would fit right at home in Diablo, in my opinion, of, hey, you're the goodest boy ever. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go fight these demons. You go take this back to town. Don't let Covetous Shen see the gems. Bye. And then go about your business. Like I think it fits, and I think it'd be really cool. And I kind of hope they expand what pets do in Diablo, because it would be a really neat feature, I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. In fact, I've even written posts about how I want the Torchlight pet system.
I know you have. Yeah. We've talked about it at length.
I mean, there was one time where I even said that they could just turn Cormac into a llama, and I would be perfectly satisfied. It's Cormac, but he's a llama. Go ahead, Liz.
We don't know what happens to Cormac. I mean, we have seen the scoundrel show up in Diablo 4, but the other companions from Diablo 3 have not made an appearance. So is Cormac still here? Is he out there somewhere? Is he a llama? We don't know.
I mean, I'm
He's not a llama.
I'm 99.99999% sure he's not a llama, but yet I cannot definitively state that I know he is not a llama. I mean, and if he was a llama, until we see him or him as a llama, yeah, absolutely.
Until we see him, he could be a llama. So,
yeah, or an alpaca. It's quite hard for me to tell the difference. I know they're related. True. Or a vicuña, these are all camelids from South America. Point being, he could be any one of them. We just don't know. But we should also talk about, I don't think there's anything. We didn't mention the new PvP multiplayer dungeon, but really that's all we know is there will be a new PvP.
That's another thing, yeah.
New PvP multiplayer dungeon. Okay.
Interesting, but that's all we know. There was, of course, a new trailer this weekend, but that's kind of hard to... How do we discuss this in audio format?
There's a very cool trailer, and it was real gory. That's all I got for you.
It was horrifying. I mean, we're big on the body horror here, and Akarat's not going to protect you. It's just, we've tried that. We've tried the Akarat protect me. It didn't work last time. It's not going to work this time. I'm sorry, it never works. Akarat is not going to protect you.
Yeah, it's really it was. I will say that Diablo 4, whatever you think of it, has been absolutely amazing at horrifying video trailers.
And really, really good video trailers. Yeah. I mean, they're terrifying, but they are fantastic.
No, it's a great trailer. I mean, but it's Yeah. Also, I gotta say, voice acting amazing for some of these.
Mhm.
So yeah, but I don't think we have anything else to talk about there. So now we can segue on into what I like to call everything else. This weekend, the ones I got to see were the Summer Game Fest, the Steam Next
Yeah.
Fest, and the Xbox Showcase. I know there were more, but those are the
Yeah,
ones I saw.
over the past weekend, we did have the Summer Game Fest. Joe and I talked a little about what we were looking forward to last week. And, I think I said the thing I didn't expect to see at Summer Game Fest was Dragon Age.
Yeah, we were
And
both skeptical about that.
BioWare was waiting.
Here we are.
BioWare was like,
Someone,
okay.
they were listening for that.
She doesn't believe. Now, hit it. Punch the button. Look, it's more Varric. Look at him. He looks older and even more grizzled. You know you want him. So my wife was like, I'm not so sure about Dragon Age anymore because they don't do any continuation. And Varric pops up like, at this point, I think Varric is the main protagonist of Dragon Age.
No, technically your created character is, but really it's Varric because dwarves are awesome in Dragon Age. Let's be honest.
It's Varric. And also,
Awesome.
Go ahead, Liz. I'm going to let you go. I just want to say this last thing. In the Veilguard trailer, when I saw the Veilguard trailer, and the first two people I saw were Varric and Harding, I was like, okay, I can't let myself fall down the rabbit well. I can't let myself ship them. But my God, they're cute. Oh, why are they being so cute together? I don't want this. Anyway, go on.
I want it. I want this. Oh my gosh. I was feeling real down on this game. I was feeling real down because BioWare spent 10 years giving us tiny teasers and just promising us, yes, we're definitely working on Dragon Age. We totally love Dragon Age. And it's not just that we're required to say this or else we'll be fired because we love Dragon Age. It's really had that kind of vibe. But, during Summer Game Fest, they released a short character trailer, which got a pretty negative reaction online. I gotta say, I made a mistake. I went to YouTube and I read the comments. And I went to Twitter and I read some of those comments. Both of those things were mistakes. Don't do it.
Yes. But what it struck me as, and I was thinking about this today because I was watching did you see the gameplay video that they released where it shows
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I've watched it several times now.
Did it strike you interface and art while of being very similar to what you would expect from a large scale mobile game? Because I'm wondering if that's where people's knee-jerk reaction to it is. Not necessarily the Fortnite-ishness of it, which I'm going to be honest, I think that art is perfectly fine, and I think I personally like it, but I could see where maybe there's that knee-jerk reaction because of that. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, specifically in the character trailer, everything looks a little more cartoony, and it's presented in this very sort of punchy way where they're introducing each character on like an action freeze frame.
Yeah,
and a lot of people said it was like a Marvel movie. I don't want a Marvel movie. I want Dragon Age. But I didn't feel like the gameplay segment, which was 20 minutes of gameplay, I didn't feel like it had that cartoonish vibe. Maybe characters have slightly more exaggerated features, but this did not feel like it wasn't Dragon Age. The art style's a little different, not a lot different.
I mean, but that's something that happens in every Dragon Age game too, though. I mean, there's an evolution in character design and art through all of them to this point. So I wasn't surprised by that.
But there was a real negative reaction to the perceived cartooniness, yes, of the character trailer, which was revealed at the Xbox Game Showcase. And then today, we knew BioWare was going to drop a gameplay trailer. They dropped 20 minutes of the introduction to the game, with some segments cut for time, some segments cut to avoid spoilers. And honestly, it looked like a Dragon Age game to me.
It did a little more hack and slashy, but
it reminded me of Dragon Age 2. That's the thing.
Yes, that's what it reminded me of very heavily. Sorry, please go ahead.
I mean, it did feel a little more hack and slashy, but I'm kind of thinking that's because this is early gameplay. Like this is a character who's just started the game. They're level 1. They haven't collected a whole lot of abilities yet. Mm-hmm. So kind of you're just going in there with your daggers and your bow and arrow, and you're doing what you can.
And I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not saying that as a negative. It's just there's been this divide in the Dragon Age community about whether it should be more like it was in Dragon Age 1 or Dragon Age Origins, where like you essentially were playing a turn-based game most of the time, or at least that's the way the game was designed. And then it sort of moved away from that in 2, and people felt very divisive about it. Mm-hmm. I think this is fine. And I think this is perfectly acceptable, and is going to be a ton of fun from what I saw. The animation looked very fluid, which was great. I really liked that.
One of the things I noticed about the animation that I really wanted to point out is that it did something that Diablo 4 also kind of does, where it was very seamless between just the characters, up close cinematic action, and okay, now we're actually in gameplay. It doesn't feel jarring to go from this to this. It looks like the same character. They've completely worked in, from what I saw, they've worked in the appearance of the player character into these cinematics. They're there talking to other people, and it's very integrated, even more so than we saw in Inquisition. And I really enjoyed that about it too. I think it's interesting. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I am 100% fired up for this game. But I'm like 95% fired up for this game, which, considered I was not fired up for it at all last week, is a pretty big achievement. They got me interested. And it really reminded me of a heist movie. Like,
yes, that's exactly what I thought. To me, when I watched the trailer.
It felt like Ocean's 11 or something, where they introduced all the specialists and stuff. So I didn't feel like it was a Marvel movie at all. I felt like it was a heist movie. Like it does very much feel like, you know, The Italian Job or Ocean's 11 or something, where you get all the people and this is what their specialty is. This is why they're on the team. And I also kind of thought it was cute. And they're like, you know, we need a leader, but who are we going to find? And meanwhile, the character is there doing the character stuff. I just thought it was nice. It's a nice touch.
Yeah, and I mean, that feels like a very Varric way to introduce a party to. He's kind of sitting there and thinking of it from the story perspective. Well, we need a detective type, and we need, you know, he's going down the list of character concepts, and then we're seeing kind of a little splash screen of each character filling this role. I thought it was very Varric. So, and, you know, if it's Varric, I'm okay with it. That's it. That's the beginning and end. That's it. If Varric is there, I'm good. I'm good with it.
It was a joke when I said it, but at the same time, there is a case to be made for Varric being the through line character of this game series.
Yeah.
He's appeared in 3 out of the 4 games. No other character has been in more of them than him. So yeah, I'm quite, and I'm also interested to see that they've got at least one playable Qunari, and I'm pretty sure you can play as a Qunari. And this is cool for me.
Can we also all appreciate the sassiness of Hardin?
Oh yeah, totally. I'm super into Hardin this time. I liked Hardin in Inquisition, but man,
Harding did not have much gameplay, much game time. She was a really a side character that I think a lot of people latched onto because she is charming and she is there to take names and kick ass. But she's also,
I'm going to say this too. I can't remember her name of the actress. She played Liara Tassoni, and she played Lightning in the Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy 13. And I one of the things I like about the actor, Ali Hills, is that her name? Yeah, it's Ali Hills. Is that she took both of those characters and kind of made one person out of them. So instead of always being incredibly angry and bitter or always being incredibly naive, that you've got somebody who actually has a range of emotion. And I liked Harding in this in the video. I thought Harding was really I actually liked her in Inquisition too. Like there's one of the expansions where you go fight a frozen dragon in the north, and Harding's more involved and gives you a lot more guff, for lack of a better word. And I've always liked the character, so yeah, I'm down for that as well. And it's also nice to see 2 dwarves as the initial phase characters like that, because dwarves don't always get to do that. So yeah, I am excited for this. I think we're all kind of excited for this, at least a little bit. I also want to mention now, I want to kind of segue a little bit, although Liz, if you want to go on more, we totally can.
I mean, I think there's been a fair amount of negative backlash, and I think there's still some to the gameplay trailer today, but I think the gameplay trailer looks really good. It looks like a Dragon Age game. It is not the same as Inquisition. It is not the same as Dragon Age 2. It is not the same as Dragon Age Origins. But it looks like a Dragon Age game.
Yeah.
It has that BioWare-style dialogue and cinematic. It has Varric. He's right there. So, yeah, I'm into it. And I think I'm, being the contrary person that I am, I'm a little more into it because of the amount of internet hate I've read. Everyone hates it, so I must love it.
Yeah,
that's just that. That's it now. That's it. I'm committed.
That's oppositional defiance disorder for you in a nutshell. Yeah, absolutely. I honestly feel like if they can do the thing that it looks like they're trying to do and pull good out of each game in the series and bring the good forward, because there's good stuff about all of them. There's a lot to love about Dragon Age 2. I still think right now it's my favorite game in the series. We'll see if that holds up. But they all have good things. Like the dialogue and snappiness of the characters in 2 is amazing. Origins has a really good cinematic sweeping feel to it, and it's got some interesting nuance. Inquisition had its problems, but I had a ball playing it. Like I loved playing it. And I absolutely loved the DLC for taking themes and bringing them forward. And I'm never going to leave. Won't anything in this bleeping world just stay fixed? Like with the Inquisitor is just done. The Inquisitor is done, guys. So yeah.
It had so much great dialogue, so many great character moments in Inquisition.
Yeah. So I am looking forward to seeing this and seeing how it goes and what's going on with it. But I do want to also talk about Star Wars Outlaw, because we got gameplay and news and so forth for that. Liz, I know you've been super interested in Outlaws, so you get right of first refusal on talking about it.
I mean, I think Outlaws just looks like a great game. I know that probably a lot of us are maybe a little burned out by Star Wars at this point, because there's a lot of Star Wars out there. And I mean, Star Wars is cool, but there's a lot of it. But this just seems like a cool game. It's a sort of open world where you are a smuggler scoundrel type, and you're sort of finding where you fit between all of these varying smuggler factions. You can do things and become friendly with one. You can do things and make another one mad. You can piss off the Empire, and then you have to deal with that, which is not good for your health. So it seems just like an interesting game dynamic, whether you're into Star Wars or not. And one of the things that really interests me about it particularly is it feels like the original Star Wars movie. There's something about the look and the aesthetic that it doesn't feel like a modern Star Wars movie. It feels like a 70s, 80s, something in there. You know, there's something about the vibe of it that feels very authentic to the original trilogy. And I can't tell you what it is, but whatever it is, it nails it. And it looks really fun. It looks like I hope you can do a little stealth gameplay there. I've seen a lot of shoot 'em up, but it seems like it would play to stealth. But usually the main character, K, I think is it. Usually there's shooting in every mission that we've seen video for. Yeah, still I'm into it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be buying it when it first comes out, because there are so many games this year. How am I supposed to fit another one in? But I am very into this game.
Joe, Herzl, I heard you talking.
No, I was disagreeing. Like it's definitely captured the aesthetic and feel. It's definitely intrigued me. So I am definitely in. I'm into at least check it out and let it see if it'll pass my 2-hour rule.
Yeah, I will say that it's a Ubisoft game that kind of has that open world exploration vibe, and we all know how I feel about Assassin's Creed or Odyssey. I also liked Valhalla. So games, Ubisoft has shown me that they can do that kind of game and do it right. And I'm happy it exists, because I think for a lot of people, it's the gritty space scoundrelly stuff, the smuggling, the galaxy on the edge, the rebellion, that whole thing. That's their Star Wars. My Star Wars is guys with lightsabers, or girls with lightsabers, or just slugs with lightsabers. That's my Star Wars. So I'm like not as interested in this, because no one will be using the Force. Nobody will have a lightsaber. But I think they should have stuff, not just media, but games where that's the role. And I think it's Andor that really made me think that, because I don't know if you liked Andor or you didn't like it, but I think the story in Andor was like a chess piece. It was so wonderfully put together. It was like a really well constructed clock, and stories like that make me see the possibility of a story where everyone's just trying to get by. Everyone's just trying to get through this crazy galaxy they're in. They're not all like weird magical warrior wizard people. They're just people trying to get through. I think that's a good direction to go for a single player third person action adventure game, which is what they're calling it. It's an RPG, guys. Come on. It's the Witcher and Star Wars. Come on, you are not fooling anyone. But regardless, yeah, I think that's a good approach, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't think I'll be getting it like when it comes out because my God, there's so much stuff coming between this year and next year. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming. Want to talk briefly about Fallout 76? Go ahead.
Let me jump in very briefly. Star Wars Outlaws is due out on August 30th. So
definitely not going to be playing it the first week, guys. Sorry.
Definitely not playing it the first week.
There is no way I have time for this. There is zero way I have time for this. So, but I do. I'm into it. I'm going to play it.
Yeah, it's just unfortunately as you get through life and you realize, I have to do things besides play games. You kind of have to start budgeting time. And I mean, we're a Blizzard website, and the next expansion will be out the week before that. I don't see how I'm gonna be able.
No, this is just not gonna. It's not possible.
Yeah, but I do think it's a cool looking game. However, I do briefly want to mention that Fallout 76 announced playable ghouls. They're coming in the next expansion. I blanked on everything else they were saying. Like Joe and I have been doing this Fallout thing, and we've been trying to get through it. Life has gotten in the way a couple of times, but we've been really focusing on it. And then they're like, playable ghouls. And I was like, oh, what's the lore implications? And I started spiraling down. Like it's literally like that scene in High Anxiety where the swirling thing is behind him and he's falling. Yep. It's like that, but with playable ghouls. So I needed to mention that's happening. I don't know what's going on with it, but it's cool. There's I don't know. We've really not talked much about Avowed, but we talked a bit about Obsidian. So Obsidian's Avowed got another trailer, and it's essentially... Go ahead.
One more thing. Fallout 76 playable ghouls. That is June 12th. So
as of the time of this recording, tomorrow.
That's tomorrow, yeah.
Yes, we're packing in the games over the summer and fall that we will in no way have time to play. It's going to be impossible.
Yeah, no, it's I can't let myself get sucked back into Fallout 76. I barely have time to do anything right now with my life being out. There's no way I have time for Fallout 76. And it's the funny thing about Fallout 76 is people don't know this that played it when it came out. And I'm going to just get this out real quick. When Fallout 76 came out, it was a dumpster fire.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
I don't even feel bad saying that because if anything, it was a dumpster fire that glitched out so that only half of the dumpster was visible, but it was still on fire and it would wander around hitting you, even though you didn't see it. I mean, it was terrible. And it also had an idea where there was no NPCs. There was mobs that would attack you, and there was robots that would occasionally talk to you, but no living human NPCs anywhere in the world around you.
Which was an interesting choice because it completely broke from the Fallout lore.
Yeah. And they went back on that. They were like, nope, we're going to have to put in NPCs because, quite frankly, no one's playing this game. Right now, at least as of a year ago, Fallout 76 is a very good game.
I agree.
It's not just good, it's very good. However, it has all the problems of a multiplayer thing.
Unless you're on a private server.
Yeah. And it's too much. It's too much. I can't have another one of those. I already have WoW and Diablo 4.
So many.
Doing that in different ways. I can't have Fallout 76 as well. I'm sorry, Bethesda, but
I must come in with a correction for myself. The Skyline Valley expansion is coming out June 12th. Ghouls are not expected until early next year. So if you really want to get into Fallout 76 and play a ghoul, you have time to play all of this year's games before that becomes a problem.
All right. But now going to move on really fast. Really quickly, Starfield has been getting buffed as well. They've been doing a lot of patches to that. But they just released yesterday the creation kit for modders. And what that means is you're looking at another situation like Fallout 4, where people are going to be playing this game for a decade just because they want to make mods for it. I mean, you are going to see a lot of mods. And I do think I should mention that. They announced the next expansion, which is about the Serpent Cult people, who I remember, but I don't remember the name. I think it's Shattered Sky is the name of it. Yeah, it's Shattered Sky. And they're gonna House Varun is going to be coming back and doing all their snake worshipping weirdness. I actually, like I said before, I keep calling it Skyrim in space in my head. I liked Starfield. I get why people don't like it. They've made some changes to address things people don't like, but in the end, it is going to be a game you like or a game you don't. And I'm not going to try and push it on people who don't like it. I will say that it's fascinating to see the full court press on this game. Like, they are not backing down. They are not. Bethesda doesn't seem to do that. They don't seem to cut their losses. And it's weird because studios like that are under the Bethesda umbrella absolutely do. Like, Redfall just got done cutting their loss. Redfall's gone now, essentially. Like, they put out the last content patch and it's done. There will be no more Redfall. But they're going to be doing Starfield for 2 more expansions, they've said. Like, wow, okay, Bethesda, you do you.
This is a Bethesda game, and frankly, they usually launch and they're a little disappointing and then they get better. That's kind of like a predictable cycle.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
So, I mean, if they gave up on every game right when it launched because it wasn't doing as well as they hoped, they would never make games. So, yeah, I get it. I get it. They're making a game. They're committed to it. They're committing to making it better after it has launched because they kind of have to.
Well, I mean, we could argue long and hard about why Bethesda can't launch a game in anywhere like decent condition, to the point where when Starfield launched and it wasn't the worst game I ever played, I was like, oh my word, it's only a couple dozen bugs. And honestly, that was something I was saying to people. And I think Joe could even report it. I was like, yeah, there's only like 30 or so bugs. And he was like, what are you talking about? That's way too many. I was like, not for Bethesda. For Bethesda, that's great. So yeah, I don't know. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Either of you like that one? Did you see any of it?
I mean, we've been seeing the same trailer for it, or a very similar trailer for it for a long time. I don't think they've shown us much of this game. I think we're getting a lot of the same trailer or very similar variations, but I am into it. I'm into it because I love punching Nazis. It's so much fun.
The one gameplay thing the one gameplay thing I saw recently looked to be different, but it wasn't a long thing. Yeah, I agree with you that mostly we're not getting. I also agree with you that punching Nazis. I mean, that's what got me into Wolfenstein. But I've been going a lot and kind of leading things. So I'm going to say, I don't know who asked this. I think it was Joe, because it's why include New Doom. New Doom! I don't know why I didn't include New Doom, because quite frankly, Doom the Dark Ages looks fascinating.
Yeah, I put that in there because there were 2 very, very exciting things for me that were announced during the Summer Game Fest, and this is one of them. I absolutely love the Doom games. I love the new ones. I loved Doom 2016. I love Doom Eternal. They're fantastic. Now we get Doom the Dark Ages with the official trailer, the first one of many to come, where it's essentially a prequel. It is a prequel to the Doom games. It tells you where Doom Guy came from. And that is absolutely wild to me. And when they say Dark Ages, it's not like you don't have a gun. You still have your double barrel shotgun, because that is the most important thing in a Doom series. But the chainsaw Captain America shield, I am so in. Give me those metal riffs. Give me that driving bass beat, and let me kill some demons, because I'm all about this. And the fact that they're doing a prequel, we've been talking about this for years.
Yeah.
And anybody who's been a fan of the Doom series, when you open up in Doom, you have no idea who you are. That's the whole shtick. You are the Doom Marine. But like your origin, who you are, and why you woke up in the base that you did, completely surrounded by demonic hellspawn traversing the multiverse, never explained. They finally started explaining it and giving actual background and story in Doom 2016, and then again in Doom Eternal, and now you get to see the origin of Doom Guy. I'm so in.
Plus, I mean, what's interesting about it was that they actually managed to tie in all that completely insane stuff from the original Doom games and the Doom thing that they did in was it 2010?
2010. Yep.
Yeah, they did that Doom game in 2010, which is much more of a Resident Evil style horror game. And then they've managed to try and tie it all in, but they don't. I am interested to see this, partially because Chainsaw Captain America shield. I can't argue against that. That's just nice. But also because you see that one part where he's like wearing a cloak, but he's still got the armor on.
He's got the fur hunter's cloak from the medieval style of like you would expect from any fantasy movie. Yeah,
but complete armor still. Otherwise, still the same armor.
Armor.
We used to seeing. It's just. There's a sense of humor about it that I think was kind of missing in Eternal. Eternal kind of got pretty heavy. And that's fine. It's fine. But I do like the slightly less... it doesn't feel like it won't be heavy or gory, but it feels like they're a little bit impish this time. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, kind of like they were in 2016, which I'm definitely here for.
Yeah. 2016 has some of the funniest moments, like when he's going up in the elevator and the voice of, Captain Evil McButt is talking to him. Samuel Haight, I think his name is. He's talking to him, things just got out of control. And instead of responding to anything the man says, he just punches the intercom.
Yep.
Like, shut up. I don't care.
Or the fact that when he finds the Doom bobbleheads in the secret areas, he like high fives himself with it. Like he like literally does like the fist bump and then with the hand kind of like fingers waving away. Like there's a lot of humor in it. There's a lot of humor to be had in Doom, which I think is great.
Yeah, you really should have humor.
Absolutely.
Playing Doom. Alan Wake 2 expansion was mentioned.
Yep.
I did not know they had an expansion.
They like mentioned it, and he looked at his watch, and he's like, tomorrow.
Yeah, it's available as of
tomorrow.
Now.
Yes, it's already there.
So
I didn't find out about until this, and I'm like, yeah, I need it. Sorry, go ahead.
It looks insane. I have not played Alan Wake 2, so
I love it.
On the list. It's on the list with so many other games on the list.
I still have to finish Control before I can play Alan Wake 2.
You need to. Okay. I need like 2 minutes.
Go.
I absolutely love everything they're doing with the Wake universe. Alan Wake was one of my favorite games when it first released, and I absolutely adored it. And then going to Control, I talked about Control for a very, very long time. Control is the reason I got a 39-inch curved monitor for my computer because the game supports it as a native resolution and the game hides things in the peripheral. So like the larger your monitor, the more crap you can see. Like it is absolutely phenomenal, but they tied everything together in the universe and you get Alan Wake 2, which I think is a great game. It harkens back to the original Alan Wake with the clunky controls on purpose. It does the unreliable narrator bit. It expands on the universe. It pulls in the elements from Control. And now they're doing the one thing that will make me pay immediate attention and possibly spend time that I don't have on other things on this one, which is release this expansion called Night Springs, which is pretty much Twin Peaks. We've always been joking that Alan Wake is just Twin Peaks. They're just leaning into it now. Like, you want a damn fine cup of coffee? You're going to get it in this expansion. I'm so in, and I'm really excited for it because it's going to get weird, and I like weird.
I will just say this. When I was asked to describe the Alan Wake series to my wife, she said, is it really just Twin Peaks? I was like, no. It's the Matrix if you had the X-Files in it. And the reason I'm saying this is because they turned Alan Wake into Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
He is Keanu Reeves. And so there's definitely this feeling of what's real, what isn't. But there's also the X-Files-y feeling of nothing's real. It's all crazy. We don't know. I don't really feel like it's Twin Peaks because Twin Peaks, in my opinion, has a different vibe.
I don't know. The last season sort of brought it in line with the surreal, but we could talk about that whole other thing.
Regardless, this game definitely does.
This expansion though definitely leans into the Twin Peaks weird, just weird,
complete with
just
the red
make
curtain.
It weird. You don't need a reason. It's weird, and we're gonna go with it. That's it.
So yeah, that's come out, and I haven't gotten to play Alan Wake 2 yet either because I'm not done with Control yet. Because I just But what else should I mention that we didn't really mention yet?
There was one other one that caught my attention because I'm a huge stan for this. I love the Power Rangers. I have always loved the Power Rangers. I will always love the Power Rangers. there is a game coming out from Digital Eclipse, which they make retro games. This is kind of what they do. They're making a side-scrolling Power Rangers beat 'em up that looks like an old arcade classic. And I am so in for this. I love beat 'em ups. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one that released not too long ago, Shredder's Revenge, which was literally a spiritual successor and an actual sequel to Turtles in Time.
Honestly, when I saw that game, I thought it was from that time period.
Right,
I did not know it was brand new.
Yeah, they did a phenomenal job with it. Now they're doing this, which looks like it fits in exactly into that era. Like, I loved those games. I loved the X-Men arcade cabinet that was 2 arcade cabinets glued together so you could have 8 players playing. I loved, all of the side-scrolling beat-em-ups and that you could possibly play. And this is absolutely like right in line with it, and I'm so in. So,
since you talked about that, I will mention some of the ones one of the ones I saw that I'm really interested in is Mecha Break.
Yes.
Which, if you played the original Zone of the Enders, will feel extremely familiar to you. It seems to be some kind of you're flying around in a mecha fighting robots, which means it's not dissimilar from the Armored Core 6 that came out last year.
Except this one's multiplayer, so it's like
this one's multiplayer. It's not a campaign type thing. I don't.
No, it's a squad v squad type game with mechs.
Yeah, which I mean, it just looks really good. I know nothing, however, about this next one until I saw the trailer. I like the trailer. The trailer's great, but I have no idea what's going on in this. It's designed as a looter shooter. It's called The First Descendant. I don't know anything about it. It just has a really nice trailer. First off, it uses that song that I love. It's from M83, so that's good. I'm down for that song. I can't tell if it's more Destiny multiplayer type or more single player.
It's like some weird, from what it looks like, and I don't know this for sure, but it looks like a mix of like somewhere between Destiny and Warframe.
Yeah, I got that vibe, but I can't really tell you how many people are playing it or what's going on in it. But, the thing is, I feel like looter shooters at this point, if you're making a looter shooter, you're basically throwing your game out to die.
Kinda, except this is from the Korean company Nexon Games. Mm-hmm. So like they've done a bunch of random stuff, including Maple Story for folks that remember that, but Dungeon Fighter Online. They've done Combat Arms Vindictus. They've done Counter-Strike Online with Valve. They've worked hand in hand with them on Final Fantasy 14. Monster Squad, like a bunch of Titanfall Online was with them as well. When they licensed it from Electronic Arts, they did the localization for Korea. So like they're not new to the game, and they have a lot of games. So maybe it won't be bad.
I wasn't even talking about it being bad. I just feel like the looter shooter ecosystem is fairly limited. Like there doesn't seem to be a lot of room for another Destiny. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what it is. I think your point about Warframe is actually one I hadn't considered as much.
Warframe is a game that started out pretty shaky and has gotten really good too, and is free to play if you want a looter shooter.
Yeah, I'm just mad that the one about dinosaurs didn't make it.
True, that was a good one.
Yeah,
well, because we like dinosaurs.
I do have to mention Avowed though, because I described it here as the third-person Skyrimization of Pillars of Eternity, and I don't take that back. But it's Obsidian, so it's going to be better than Skyrim. I just feel like that's impossible. The one thing about Obsidian is they're really good at taking genres and concepts other people have done and just distilling them down to like a really concentrated experience. And I loved the Pillars of Eternity games. Pillars of Eternity Deadfire is possibly the best CRPG of the last 20 years. And I'm including games that came out after it, like Wrath of the Righteous and Baldur's Gate 3. I'm actually including them when I say this.
You're not wrong.
It's very good. I'm interested. Go ahead.
I was going to say real quick for those of you at home, if you're not familiar with Obsidian games, these are the folks that brought you Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, Neverwinter Nights 2, Fallout New Vegas. I will also throw this in there because I thought it was a fantastic game that maybe people looked over, but like South Park: The Stick of Truth was actually a really good tactical game. Like they have a high pedigree. And then of course, Pillars of Eternity and Pillars of Eternity 2 and the Outer Worlds. Like, these are the people that brought you those games. So strap in. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, but they knew the thing that they released had some more gameplay stuff. It had some. They also did a podcast with Xbox to talk more about the thing in depth, which I recommend listening to, but it's well past our remit to talk about it now. But regardless, it's interesting to see it because like Obsidian does so well in this sphere. When they do, this is a game that they can do. So I'm really fascinated. You
know a game that they were supposed to do that got canceled that I'm really mad got canceled? They had a game called Dwarfs. And it was a third-person action role-playing game that was a prequel to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And I wanted it so badly because I just thought it would be absolutely rad. I don't know. Yeah. I have nothing but faith in Obsidian.
Yeah, for that matter, if you want to hear, like, Obsidian also has games that are like lesser known that you really should try and catch. Pentiment is just really good. And Tyranny is the best you can play as evil game I've ever seen.
100%.
Because you don't just play as evil, you can play as a good person, which is worse. Mm-hmm. Because in the world of Tyranny, being a good person means you have to basically do absolutely horrible things because there's no other way to overcome a global empire run by an evil tyrant with massive power. The only way to win is to go harder than he does. And it's fascinating. I feel bad that it didn't do well because there's never going to be a sequel to it. And it absolutely deserved a sequel because it ends at a point where you're just really starting.
Agreed.
But I feel like at this point we got to stop because we're basically an hour and a half into this, and there's more we could talk about. But
we are definitely over our time, but I don't care because it's been a great discussion.
Yeah, this weekend was nuts.
If you are interested in more dwarf-based games, there was First Dwarf was announced during some of these events somewhere in which you play a dwarf in a mech, and it's kind of an exploration city building survival thing. I don't entirely understand it, but you're definitely a dwarf wandering around in a mech, killing things, building things.
Yeah, it's described.
Why not?
It's described on Steam as an immersive action RPG colony survival base building. It's tower defense mechanic. So yeah, it's nuts.
Sure.
It's also a little anime-ish in terms of its video. It's a little anime influenced in terms of how it looks, but I think that actually kind of works for it. Quite frankly, sometimes games need to have a distinctive look. This one really does. But yeah, there was so much this weekend that we have missed a lot, and this
is 100% not comprehensive.
Not even remotely. It's not. We could be talking about this for another hour, but except I can't. But we could in terms of there being stuff for it. But I think at this point we're going to have to wrap it up. I want to give each of you a chance to bring one thing that we haven't talked about yet that you're thinking we should have. Give you at least a minute with it. So, Joe, you go first, then Liz.
I talked a lot, so I'm gonna bypass my option and yield my time to Liz.
Liz?
All I have is Dragon Age thoughts, and I've covered those. I'm content.
All right. I will say too, there is a discussion, and Liz did a really good post about it, about how up until this point, kind of was hard not to see Dragon Age Veilguard, which was being called Dragon Age Dreadwolf up to this point. Yeah,
Project Dreadwolf. Yeah,
it's hard to see it as not being vaporware, and I think it's a really good read. I think you should go read it because I don't think she was wrong. I think that it feels really weird the way BioWare is approaching games and game development right now. Mm-hmm. And that is something we could probably do a whole show talking about. Unfortunately, don't have the time right now. But Joe, can you do what you do so well?
Absolutely. Friends, Blizzard Watch is made possible due to the generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means that this podcast site and community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to the podcast, better chance at having your question answered on our podcast or the queue, and an ads-free site experience.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you to Liz. Basically, for being here so I could basically toss off the entire Dragon Age conversation and drink liquid the whole time to try to get my voice back. This has been the Blizzard Watch podcast this week, Blizzard Watch and other stuff. But regardless, heck of a weekend for gaming. Thank you guys so much for being here with us, and we will see you next week.